The biggest awakening I had was late last year when I listened to Bill Heffernan in his Senate inquiry speech exposing 28 pedophiles in Parliament, and there's some magnificent names on there, some spectacular names as he said, and I have half an idea because I did grow up in Sydney in the 60s and 70s, so I've got a rough idea of that spectacular list. But the 28 names include a former Prime Minister, which is quite frustrating as an Italian migrant that came here in the 60s. Our parents, as Italians and Greeks were Italian, we built this country, gave you concrete. And we've been conned since Menzies. You know, all these parliamentarians stand there and pontificate to you. But this is a truth, justice, freedom for children. Every child deserves to grow up safe. The disappointing thing about today is, not you people here, is if this was a rally for cruelty against animals, I'd have this civic park full. I'm disgusted in the rest of the population that hasn't turned up here. And the lockdown in Sydney, where's the Anzac spirit? You know, anyway, to move things along, I'm quite saddened by all this. This was, as I said, Bill Heffernan's speech opened up my eyes to the corruption in the judiciary, the police, and also local councils. Gosford Council had their own little pedophile, Laurie Marr. He's still on trial, and they were all on the public purse. Also, Alistair Webster, who ran Dareth Boys Home out of Windsor, where my lovely wife comes from. And also on the public purse, he became a Liberal minister in Parliament. So he has lived off our taxes for the last 40 to 50 years, and he's on trial also for child sexual abuse and torture at Dareth Boys Home. Unfortunately, we don't have Stephen here, a good friend of ours, but he suffered at the hands of those people, almost died. But those stories need to be told. I think everyone that's asked me to speak here today, even though it was the last 30 seconds by my wife, I'd like to welcome everyone from far and near, all those people that caught the ferry in from Port Macquarie. We met you on the train down to stand in the park. They're doing a marvellous job. It's time for change now. 2021 is when you stand up to these pedophiles in Parliament, and if child rape agrees with the rest of the population, well, shame on them. I say shame on them for child rape and agreeing to every time you vote for a Labor or Liberal politician, you vote for the same bird. The same bird has with the same wing. You've got Labor on one wing and Liberal on the other. It's just a change of management every time you have an election. Okay, so with all that, I'd like to introduce
Lisa,
who is a victim, and if Lisa wants me to stand next to her, that's fine. I'd be proud to stand right next to her. She has a story. We also have another young lady, Marnie, be coming up and speaking. Once again, thank you all for your support. I'm proud of each and every one of you here for standing up for our children and our future children. I've got 7 grandchildren out there, and I don't want them to run into any of these pedophiles that are in Parliament.
Well, I would like to start first by acknowledging the Warramai and Awabakal people on whose land we gathered for this most powerful event. And I acknowledge any Aboriginal people here today, all elders past, present and emerging, and I also acknowledge the land was never ceded. I did write this out because I knew that I'd lose the plot and not be able to keep talking. I'm a victim, but I'm like not of the actual abuse, but in other ways, and I'd like to share this. And how can I say? Today we're here to tell the world it's a reality. We are here to speak up for our children and for the thousands that have lost their lives in the most horrific way. How can I say that? 21 years ago I was a teacher and had a 9-year-old boy in my class who was under strict supervision. I connected with him well, and then his mother told me that she had escaped with her sons from the mother's satanic family that she'd married into. The boy had been chosen to be the Godhead. He'd been tortured with electric shock treatment to alter his personality. She continued to tell me how everyone that she turned to for support supported the satanic father, the judges, the federal police and psychiatrists. She escaped the first time, but the police stopped her car, took the boy, threw him in the boot of the car and then sped off. Somehow she got him back, and when I met her she was in the process of fighting to keep her son and to prove she was sane, hence the strict supervision of her son. And I was so traumatised by that I spoke to a friend that was a doctor because I really couldn't get my head around it. And he calmly told me that it was all true, but I couldn't expose it because if I did, my life would be in danger. And that was not the first time I'd been told that. Back in the 80s, I was told the same thing when the pupils in my class, we had a writing program, and one little boy took great pride in his little story about Healthy Harold. I don't know if any of you know or remember Healthy Harold. Well, he had illustrated his with marijuana leaves, needles, syringes, candle flame, and a pile of you-know-what on foil in this illustration. So when I talked to him about it, the kids let me know, he told his friends he could talk to me about drugs. So I had 10-year-olds coming and telling me, I know what heroin looks like, it's a white powder. And I said, who told you that? Oh, the guy at the milk bar. He gives it to all the kids for free. And with horror, I went to the principal, but the principal did not want to do anything about it. I was a resident in this town with a small toddler, so I reported it. And to my horror, I was asked, thanks for the name of that milk bar. We just shut down another one in your area, and it's a front for child pornography. What they do is they give the kids this saying that it's marijuana. These kids were more or less street kids because their parents had to work long hours. They were migrant families. So those children become addicted to the heroin, and at that point, the people supplying it make them engage in child pornography in order to survive. So that was that experience.
There you go.
I lost my marriage to that. But going back to the boy being a victim of satanic abuse, I saw the effects of what they'd done to him firsthand. This little 9-year-old boy who was calm in my class. I'd been away for a week. I came back and I got a call and I heard them say he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop and we can't get him down. So I was then asked, can you please come and help with him, because I taught him strategies just to keep him calm in the classroom. I walked into that deputy's office and this 9-year-old boy was on the ground with demonic noises coming out of his mouth. 2 male teachers trying to hold him down. He was totally possessed. He was totally possessed, and that possession was given to him by his father, and I would not believe it if I had not heard it with my own ears. So I was able to calm him down. And then I tried to talk to people about it, but no one would believe it. Then I stumbled across Fiona Barnett's story and realised her story connected exactly with his mother's story. And then I came across the wonderful Jeanette Archer, and again, her story match the story, and I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because I realised how much a toll it had taken subconsciously not to be able to expose these things. And I've also been involved with the cold case of missing girls. They were friends of mine at school. They went missing. I had a letter of confession from a guy because the main suspect that they had arrested was using me as his alibi, and he wrote this letter. However, police never followed it up, and then about 35 years later, they finally held a coronial inquest, and yet no charges were laid. Also mysteriously, the record of him ever having been arrested disappeared. Then I went to look at just cold facts for today, in case we had people that don't believe it. According to the International Centre for Missing Children, that comes from the Australian Federal Police website, 20,000 people, go missing in Australia every year. Kind of ironic that they commissioned and funded the research to be done. And that report was released in March this year. And then they went on to say that children in out-of-home care are at a much higher risk of being exploited, harmed, or used for crime. And then if you Google satanic abuse in Australia, you only see 2 articles. All the rest discredited. One article published by Von Preston, a senior journalist with the Sydney Morning Herald, wrote in 1991. Her main caption on that article was, "Child abuse fortified by the mystique of satanic rituals has become an endemic of their tormentors." I'll go back. An endemic in Western countries and now in Australia. But once saved from the clutches of the tormentors, the children are seldom believed. In her article, she asked why a horrifying crisis has failed to excite passions of the left and public authorities alike. And the horrors are described by a forensic scientist that she interviewed for that article. Her concluding paragraph says that, as things stand, satanic rituals in a secular country like Australia are not taken seriously, and anyone who respects children's accounts of satanic or ritualised abuse are not taken seriously either. Any outcry there is tends to come from male colonists who warn not against the terrorism and brutalisation of our children, but against witch hunts, which are only too ready to see a male conspiracy to abuse the female, with every man guilty until proven innocent. Children who do survive and brave enough to talk, and this is from an article, it's not my ideas, but I knew it. They're so traumatised that and they don't understand that. And so, of course, what they said 1 minute, they can easily be confused. So if they get to court, then they're traumatised again, because their evidence is no longer credible, and the whole thing is dismissed. And we have to change that. Then we have the Royal Commission into Institutional Abuse. Fiona Barnett gave evidence, but in that report there's not one mention of satanic ritual abuse. The minister included ritual abuse, but then hounded as to why he said it. He included those terms in his apology. The Royal Commission into the Police followed has a 1990 gag order, as our dear brother said. Why? They say it's so the public will not lose confidence in them. And that does the complete opposite. The only thing we can be confident about is that pedophiles in higher positions and those that covered it up are protected, not our children and not our society. And as you all probably know, the Metropolitan... and the thing that really upset me was that during the lockdown, child pornography viewing dramatically increased. And if authorities can track that statistic and people report it, why can't they shut it down? Satanic abuse and all crimes against our children will never be exposed if people stay silent, because the web of this penetrates our society so that we all turn a blind eye, and the authorities. But at least the Metropolitan Police recognise satanic abuse. 10 cases have been successfully prosecuted, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. But what about here? Denial, survivors ridiculed, hundreds if not thousands of children suffering unimaginable horrors, pedophilia, traffic for satanic rituals, organ harvesting, torture to near death so their blood can be taken for adrenochrome, and ultimately they are sacrificed. Yes, it's all a fact, no conspiracy. We must fight for children, no more children, no more silence, our children are precious. We must fight for them and to honour the millions of children that have been lost over time. And one last thing, if you think Newcastle is exempt somehow, I went to an event and before the break, I had to get up and speak about the rally. It was a poetry event, there was only about 10 of us there. And I wondered if they would bar me from coming back or if they think I was crazy. One young man started to speak and then he said, "I'll just say it, I've been a victim of ritual abuse." Another woman told me that she'd worked at Healing Hearts where SRA survivors get counselling, and another woman said she was abused when she was young by a cult team, but she left and as an adult wondered if she'd escaped satanic abuse. So in a group of maximum 10 people, 3 people had direct contact with SRA. This is no conspiracy theory, and we must fight to protect the innocence of all children.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a brave speech. As a former teacher, it's quite enlightening. I'd like to call up Marnie. Marnie's got her own story. She is a victim and very brave coming out today. They were to go to Sydney, but because of the Gladys lockdown, Gladys knows everything about this. It's a scary virus, and I think the virus is just a cloak to hide all these pedophiles in Parliament, Sydney, Canberra, and wherever you can go in Australia. Up until 3 months ago, I think they were telling you that they hired little boys to visit the parliamentarians in our current federal parliament to service them. So how disgusting is it that comes into the news? Christian Porter gets sacked, probably on a full pension, but there's little boys being hired to go into the current federal parliament. I'm shocked that there's not more people here speaking up about that. If you think child rape is agreeable, then you're totally ignorant of the fact. COVID is just a cover. They're distracting us, and Scott Morrison should be hung for treason. I'm sorry to say, the first Prime Minister, that's still, you can hang the rest of the ones that are still alive. Keating would probably be on the list with his red little slippers, same as the Vatican. Our politicians are puppets. They play into this game, this bloodlust. It's disgusting. Anyway, enough of that. Marnie's got her own story. Okay, I'm right here. Give her a hand, please. Give her some support.
Hello everyone, and thank you all for coming today. This is a cause that's been close to my heart from birth. I want to thank the lovely ladies beside me that have come alongside me and are supporting me. I wish to thank our previous speaker, who as a teacher did the right thing, who spoke up for the children who couldn't speak for themselves. I also wish to thank Fiona Barnett. She's obviously gone to ground for those who know her story. If she sees this, I wish to thank her for inspiring me. For a long time I've wanted to come and tell my story, but for protection of my own family, many of us that are victims have had to stay in the shadows. And like Fiona, the war never ends for us. We are still hunted, we are still tracked down, and we are still persecuted every single day. I asked not to be named today. My first name has been given, but I'll keep my last name quiet, just not unlike the suppression orders for the protection of the pedophiles, but for the many victims that I will speak of today. If any of them receive this message, I'm sorry if it triggers you or recreates trauma for you. Some in particular, I know that it could lead to mental breakdowns when they hear their story, so I am very sorry. But I am the keeper of the secrets, and I'm here to expose them today. Like I said, part of why I didn't want to be named is because I've seen on YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else, we live in a world where everyone wants to be seen, everyone wants to be famous, everyone wants to be known. I'm not here for me, even though I have a massive story to tell, and that will come out in my autobiography one day soon, hopefully. But I am here for all the voiceless, those who have suffered that I've witnessed, and those who didn't make it through this fight. So, to get on with it, I'm here so that whenever people have a rally for children, you know not just that you're protecting your children and future generations, but I want you to know the thousands who have come before you, many who never got to tell their story, some were silenced and some never had a voice, and many died without justice. I am here for my niece, who was torn from my arms 4 hours after birth and cannibalized in front of me and my sister. My sister has no memory of her. She doesn't remember her own child. She has had so many mental health treatments, including electric shock therapy, that she can no longer speak for herself. I am here for the undercover police officer who, fresh out of the police academy, was willing to come into the pedophile ring and risk his job, his life, and even his freedom to save us and get us to safety after a full year in captivity. I'm here for dozens of children who were suppressed by the Wood Royal Commission, who were molested by my father on the Wiseman's Ferry school bus. Children he came home and bragged about as he held up keys and said, "Don't parents know it's an unsafe world? Shouldn't mothers be home to raise their children when their children get home from school?" And he would keep them on the bus and go back to the bus depot, where he would molest them. Then he would come home and dangle his keys at the kitchen table and laugh. And for the next few weeks he would watch as I ran to every adult, every teacher, every parent, every church leader that I could and screamed for those children, all falling on deaf ears. That is why I thank the school teacher who stood up today. I'm here for the police and the judge that kept my sister and I in a pedophile ring for nearly a year, and then they went on to support and conceal my father's activities. I'm here for the silence and the refusal to name predators, which we've seen with the lifting of the suppression orders, which 10 years after my father went to the commission, my mother said that 2 girls had come fundraising from a local school selling biscuits. She sent them out to my father because she didn't have money and sent them to the garden shed where he locked them for an hour, and they ran away crying, and she claimed she had no idea why. The Wood Royal Commission is guilty of not protecting children. It's guilty of silencing the victims through suppression orders, and it enabled the predators to reoffend indiscriminately for decades after. The official report stated that there was not enough evidence to support the existence of satanic ritual abuse or pedophile rings within Australia, despite the sworn testimonies of dozens and dozens of victims. I have always spoken the truth and spoken out. I was given mental health labels to conceal the truth and to ease others' consciences when they refused to listen or act on my endless pleas for help. I am here for my children who have never known aunts, uncles, grandparents or great-grandparents, as this fight has cost us my entire family, who chose to stand with the offender than to be forced to accuse him. I am here for the children who stood in a line beside me, girls in pageantry dresses and boys in onesie outfits, who were forced to run into a forest in the dead of night to the blaring wartime speakers screaming the song Teddy Bear's Picnic, as a line of men dressed in bear outfits chased us down. I'm here for the rebellion that I led, gathering the children that we could find in the bush, circling and locking arms together as we marched back into the opening, and I declared, "We will not play your games." As a gun was held to my face, and I looked him in the eyes and said, "Go ahead." They targeted other children, realising I no longer cared if I lived or was dead. I told the girls and boys to unlock arms because we won that round. Live today and fight for another day. And no matter what happens, if we die holding this night that we had a small victory. I'm here for those children who, at the end of the night, and as I was punished and humiliated for my rebellion, I just kept smiling at all of them, trying to give them strength, because there was nothing left they could do to me. As we were thrown in the dungeon that night, all filled with terror, I and a few others who copped the most brutal punishment tried to rally the troops to courage and strength, looking in those faces, knowing which ones would be lucky to survive the night, as the shock and terror was just too great and their hearts would give out. Others we hope to inspire to fight to the death and never give them the satisfaction to win. I've only learnt recently what adrenochrome, or drinking the blood of people children who are in extreme terror, but back then we knew it even though we didn't know a name for it. And my message was, don't let them scare you. Go down with your head high and don't give them the satisfaction. To the little boy who was put on the military plane in crates with me, so many children put into little wooden crates, many of the children weeing and losing their bowel motions through terror as they were packed onto military planes. For him and for all the others, I stand today. So when you hear our stories and wonder why people like Fiona and I are not at these rallies, or we're not speaking in public, it's because we have fought this war our entire lives and still do. We are still targeted. And when you march, you carry us and all these victims and more with you. Many of whom their blood screams from the ground and from the heavens for justice. Know that when you fight, it may cost you friends, it may cost you family, it may cost your freedom or even your life, but we cannot and must never give up. Thank you for listening to our collective stories. I just wanted to finish off with one poem that I wrote the other night. And it goes, teased and taunted, hunted and haunted. God, I can't just hold me, open the earth and swallow me. Hide me in the earth, safe from harm. This evil on this earth is no cause for alarm. Just worry about you and shop till you drop. someone else's problem, someone else's pain. Deaf, dumb and blind, you got nothing to say. How long are you gonna live in illusion? Not given a toss, just keep consuming. Consuming the script read by the puppets. Force-fed till you're dead. Too arrogant to think you could be wrong, and too ignorant to listen to the truth. You all know how to play the game. It's someone else's problem, someone else's pain. Soon you'll be teased and taunted, hunted and haunted. Wake up before they hunt you like they hunted us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie. That was just a brave speech. I'm shocked and dismayed, but not totally. I think I've got a third speaker.
Yes. Nikki?
I've got a third speaker who needs to tell her story. Her name is Nikki, coming up. Please give her a round of applause.
My name is Nikki Davis, and I'm here not particularly on my behalf, but actually as a reminder of the groundbreaking work that Fiona Barnett did when Senator Heffernan first came out with his statement about the list of pedophiles. And I want to remind everybody of what we did that week and how it was completely squashed. That they can't remove the evidence that we got out there, that they knew what was going on in 2015. They had a victim of the very pedophiles that Senator Heffernan was talking about come out in the national media and say, I'm a victim of this, I've reported it to the police and all the authorities, and they've done absolutely nothing about it. And that situation continues to this day. And it's so good to see everybody now referring back to that Heffernan speech in the parliamentary subcommittee and saying, look, we've got to do something about this. So I want to read to you the speech that Fiona gave when we held this media conference. I wanted to do it the very same week that Heffernan came out, so that it was acting very quickly, so that the media didn't have a chance to forget about what had gone on. And she had literally hours to prepare it, and it's an absolutely brilliant speech. What she said just hit the mark. I told her then, this is perfect, this is brilliant, and it still stands today as an absolute perfect response from a survivor of those pedophiles and the child trafficking and satanic ritual abuse, for how to come back at them and tell the world what's really important here. So, but before I start, I'd just like to congratulate Marnie. Your speech was so touching, and so many of the details that you were saying were absolutely so similar to what Fiona went through. It was just... And anyway, I'll get on to her speech. Yeah, okay. So this is Fiona's speech. This is what she said to the media. The media that were there were all absolutely touched by what she had to say. They were absolutely 100% convinced. You could see in their faces they all believed her. And it was very interesting to see that afterwards, some of them managed to get their stories through, and some of them were stopped by editors before it was even broadcast. And so, for example, the ABC were there, they recorded it, and a few days later they had lost the footage. So, then there's the story of what Media Watch did to Fiona, which was absolutely disgraceful. But first, let's hear her speech. Okay. Throughout my childhood, I was a victim of Australia's VIP child sex trafficking ring. For example, I was prostituted to pedophile priests at Parliament House, Canberra, and to an international leader at Fairbairn Military Airport. The people involved in this elite pedophile ring include high-ranking politicians, police, and judiciary. From the late 1980s, I reported my abuse experiences to multiple healthcare professionals, not one of whom adhered to mandatory reporting requirements. I reported to New South Wales Police in 2008. I reported to the Royal Commission in 2013. I reported to Operation Attest in Canberra. I made formal witness statements to New South Wales Police and have agreed to do more. I have reported directly to the New South Wales and Federal Police Commissioners and to the New South Wales Coroner. I have provided sufficient names, times, dates and places for authorities to investigate. My experiences were horrific beyond words. I witnessed child abduction, torture, rape and murder. But the way I've been treated for reporting the crimes I witnessed and experienced has been far worse than my original abuse experiences. Victims endure the most miserable childhoods. We then spend the rest of our lives paying for the crimes committed against us. Victims are constantly placed under excessive scrutiny. If we can't provide a precise time and date for something that happened 40 years ago, we are called liars. If we get emotional, we are labelled crazy. If we are vocal, we are attention seekers. It's time to focus our attention away from victims and onto those responsible for the crimes against children.
Yes. 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 Yes.
In the 2006 census, Australians identified child protection as their number one concern. Why then does our government continue to ignore the public's concern for children? Australia is a pedophile haven. Our laws are written, interpreted and administered in a way that benefits pedophiles and silences victims of crime. Our university lecturers teach pro-pedophile material. Our health boards continue to allow offending doctors and psychologists to practice. We are up to our second Royal Commission into child abuse in 20 years. The Wood Royal Commission was indeed a failure. If it were successful, I wouldn't be standing here today. The Wood Royal Commission was established in response to complaints about the VIP pedophile ring that abused me. This is the exact same elite pedophile ring that I reported to the current Royal Commission. In 2013, I asked the Royal Commission, what are you going to do differently to the failed Wood Royal Commission? They had no answer. If the Royal Commission does not result in the investigation and prosecution of the VIP pedophiles that victims like me have named, then they are just information gathering. I know you want me to stand here and name names, yet to concentrate on the names serves to shift the focus from the entire reason I am standing here. I have provided the names to the authorities. It is their responsibility to combine my information with what other victims have presented and properly investigate. And now I will give you some VIP names. Michelle. Michelle was a friendly 12-year-old girl with long dark hair. I witnessed her abduction, rape and murder when I was 6 years old. Samantha. Samantha was 9 years old with long wavy brown hair and a warm smile. She had Down syndrome. Samantha was murdered when I was 12 years old. Chloe. Chloe was an attractive 4-year-old with brown, straight-cut hair and sea green eyes. Chloe was murdered when I was 14 years old. Don't make this about me. Focus on those victims who couldn't be here today. To personally share what happened to them at the hands of the VIP pedophiles who have infiltrated Australia's extreme institutions. And can I tell you, Fiona was able to do that without crying, unlike me.
Thank you. Here's the healing.
Make this available to anybody who wants it, so that we need to pass this around, because it's an absolutely brilliant speech and hits the nail right on the head of what is wrong and what is just. And I mean, so much of that is even consistent with my own experience. And with every victim. And when I was working with Fiona, she was constantly being contacted by other people who had gone through exactly what she had gone through. It's much more common than people have any idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very brave. 3 cheers for Fiona Barnett. Hip it. Hip it. Hip it. I'm at a loss for the bravery of these ladies today. Please give them another round of applause. they gain strength from the great crowd that's here, and I can feel the love there.
Hello. But it did not happen in Australia. I came 10 years ago to Australia to get away from where I went through, and it was the furthest away country from Germany, and I wanted to come to Australia since I was 15, but I was not nothing like what you ladies went through, much milder in a way of my father's actually remember the I don't know what happened at the years. I know he used to later every day, and yeah, he was occult, so he had 1,000 books about occultism. He had ropes, he had a lion pharaoh, he had staff, he had anything what you can imagine in the occult world. But I was lucky I was not sacrificed there or witnessed anything like that. However, he asked me to find for him the wisdom stone, and after, of course, not me finding alchemy and wisdom stones, he asked me to sell my soul, and he wanted to ritual with me selling my soul to dark forces. And I was probably 15 or 16 at that time, and I said no to him. And while I remained 8 more years about as a slave for work as well for the band. My brother was as well. He was mentally delayed through the abuse, and he was abused. And I assume he was killed with dark magic by him in order to make me compliant to come back to him. Yeah. And yeah, so he was convicted actually finally for my sister, and I stood in court up and and I testified against him in court, and yes, and he could ask me in court questions, which was very, very sort of disturbing. Anyhow, he got convicted. He went to hospital for 12 years. But in my journey, and I consider myself as a spiritual being, I went back twice to the mental institution 10 and 9 years ago. And the second time I stood in front of him, and the first time in my life I had no fear. It was the first time in my life without fear, and I looked him in his eyes and I said, I wish you all the best. I gave him a hug and walked off. And I think hate would destroy my life. I'm not that. I'm not a survivor, I'm a survivor. I consider myself thriving after 10 years everyday sexual abuse. And I think that is important. We have to stand up. We are still pure, beautiful spiritual beings who we are, and everyone is. And I met so many people. They happen the same. I was on I'm working on building sites. Anyway, I worked with 2 other girl and a guy just lately, and we did work together. All 3 of us sexual abuse as children. 3 out of 3. You know, it's so prevalent. It's so prevalent everywhere. I was in Guatemala. Children there happens in the most remote communities, in anywhere in the world. It has nothing to do with how poor or how rich people are, what background they are, what cultural background. Just nothing to do with it. My safeness were my grandmother, mother's side, of course, not father's side. She was evil as him, but my mother's grandmother. She lived far away, but she was in Austria, and she saved my life as a role model. My friends at school, and my books about real love. But it saved my spirit. It always saved my spirit, and I never gave in to be in any way evil. Yeah. Thank you.
I've got a short prose, let's say, a poem by, I think some of the group here have seen Mark Atwood's speech in Britain. Everyone's got a copy. I'm just going to read it out because it's so powerful, and we'll finish with Marnie with one final little message. She's brave enough to come back up to this microphone. If you want to read it together, it starts off, "We see you." I'll start reading, and Latria's going to hand out some more copies, but it's very powerful. "We see you. The scales have fallen from our eyes. The veil has drifted down from the sky, meandering firmly, finally, revealing your depth of depravity. That's fear you're now feeling. We see you. Your demonic bloodlust laid bare to see. The statue of filth on the BBC. The prince and the madam, the crisper spy. The islands of horror in the oceans lie. We see you. A billion souls stolen over the years. You hid them deep down to drown their tears. Perfect and innocent, God's own creations, mutilated by your sick machinations. We see you. Vlad the Impaler and his vile descendants, fleeing the palace from the 5D ascendants. The virus distracted, but give us time to peel back the layers of your heinous crimes. We see you. Run as fast as you can. Back for more orders from the Phoenicians' clan. Out of White Rabbit, the looking glass cracked. Tipping point reached, odds against you now stacked. We see you. Pizza and hot dogs, pasta and sauce, your sickness decoded, your lack of remorse. Our slumber is over, our eyes not wide shut, for the children of Haiti, a knife to your gut. We see you. Ascension is powered by the light of the flare. Scramble like rats to the ruins of your lairs. It's over, it's over. Save our children, we cry. Revealed, reviled, it's your soul's time to die. We see you. Very powerful, and I think some of the group has shared Mark Atwood's clip on that one. Marnie would like to complete the day for us with a final message.
Hello, I just wanted to leave with one final word. For any victims out there who have heard what has been said today, my message to you is one thing I've learnt through my entire life. Because of what I've seen and what I've experienced, people magnetise to me. I've had people tell me their stories my whole life through. And the few times I shared bits of my story, I was very aware of vicarious trauma. I didn't have a label for it back then, but I'm very aware not to re-traumatise others with my story. Having said that, one of the things I frequently told victims who came to me, they would always say, and I heard it said just then, my story's not as bad as yours. One thing I want to verify and clarify today, there is a new diagnosis that was meant to be put into the Diagnostic Statistic Manual for Psychology, and it was called developmental trauma. What that is a diagnosis that recognises the impact pedophilia has on children. Not only does it show it, it exposes it, and it shows the list of symptoms that all survivors face, whether you've been raped once or 1,000,000 times, whether you've been tortured, beaten, starved, depleted, it all affects us in the same way, and it has long-lasting consequences. I worked in an aged care facility, and I met many patients, and my heart went out to them. But the most devastating thing that terrifies me till the day I die is seeing an elderly lady with dementia who couldn't remember her own children, but she sat and she told me her story. She could not remember her children, but she could remember abuse at the age of 4. People need to realise that people are covering this up because they want to normalise pedophilia. They want to use transgender and people who have real gender dysphoria and real health issues and use their LGBT wanting love and acceptance, and they're pushing their agenda for pedophilia on the back of innocent people and using that against them. And I would say, don't allow hate in your heart for anyone, even the LGBT community. I also want to sternly rebuke the Christian church. My whole life I have heard, and especially now, that gay and homosexuality is wrong. And I'm not here to say today whether God is for it or against it, but what I will say is science has proven that children who are molested, their brain connections are formed, that it becomes a superhighway. Is it any surprise they're going to return to that as adults? How dare you judge them when you turned your back on the children? They came to you for help and you turn your back when they become gay or lesbian or bisexual or hit the streets or turn to drugs. What do you expect? We're dealing with the fallout in prisons, in mental health. Right now, the number of us here today that have probably been abused is huge. As I was saying in the car on the way here, the last time I heard the statistic was 1 in 2 girls and 1 in 3 boys. Where are you all? You need to be out here. There is no such thing as your story is worse than mine. It affects you, it affects me, and we can carry it to our grave, and we can be with dementia remembering what happened regardless of how bad it was. It is the same, whether it is once or 100 times. Yeah. Come together now, because now is the time. If you have been through this, I know that you are feeling this. I know that you're feeling the Spirit saying, come out and speak. We may never get another chance like this. We are on the cusp of a turning point in this world, and we have a chance to stand and bring this to light, or we can let them win and normalise pedophilia through gender normative and what do they call that in school?
Safe school.
No, the gender fluidity and the critical race theory. They are using all of this to divide us, to create division, so that everyone hates everyone else.
Yes.
Yet most of us are victims. Half of the population of Australia has been a victim of pedophilia. Do not be part of the problem, be part of the solution.
Yes.
And if you can't come forward because you are still being oppressed, or you are worried, like me, for your own children, for being targeted, it won't stop, they won't rest, and neither can we.
Yes. Here, here.
If you can't stand up, then we will stand for you. But if you have any chance of coming up and standing forward, we will stand beside you.
Yes.
And we honour you and your story. Thank you all.
Thank you.
To walk us through a short blessing for the children and for survivors as well. So I just want to start by saying thank you for your courage and for being a part of today. Would you please join me in creating a closing blessing that will be sent and felt across the planet. United we rise, up freedom for all children, not just children in Australia, but children everywhere. Place your hands on top of one another and place them on your heart. Deeply breathe in the knowledge you are supporting the children, past, present, and sadly future, that have been and are still trapped enduring this evil. By being here together, united, our collective energy and voice of truth will be felt and heard. As you exhale, feel the loving protective energy flowing out, enveloping the whole earth. Inhale the knowledge you are seeking justice for all children that have been abused and exploited, who instead, if they survived, are left to feel invalidated, not heard, and not believed. Exhale our love and light to all of our survivors. The brave voices, not only speaking up for themselves, but for all the voiceless. Let the wind carry our message. We hear you and we believe you. Now please take a moment to bring your focus back to the present moment and collect your thoughts. We ask that you always stand beside our survivors, because with the support from us, they will remain strong, they will remain sharing their message, and they need us. Thank you once again for today, and so it is.
Question shoes, we'll do a walk around the fountain, around the water.
Looks like Rhonda's babysitting you later on when you're sort of hyperactive and you're going to sit still. Maybe we can just sit down and have a...